Good evening. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Gadi Schwartz coming to you from Los Angeles. We've got all eyes on Washington this hour, and they are glued to the House floor. That's where the vote on that debt ceiling bill is supposed to start any minute. We're going to bring you all of it right here as it happens, so don't go anywhere. But in the meantime, let's bring you up to speed on where we are on the bill right now. Over the weekend, President Biden and Speaker McCarthy reached some sort of bipartisan deal on the debt ceiling. But bipartisan is a tricky word, and that deal is facing opposition from both Democrats and Republicans. Despite all that, Speaker McCarthy has repeatedly said he is confident that it will pass through the House tonight.
Today, the American people are going to win. We're going to pass the largest cut in American history. It's just a small step putting us on the right track.
And NBC News Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles joins us now from Capitol Hill. Ryan, so we've heard several big-name Democrats come out throughout the day saying that they're going to be voting no on this bill, and some Republicans are saying the same thing. Now, this has to get through a Republican-controlled House, but then has to go to a Democrat-controlled Senate and then get signed off by a Democrat president, all by next Monday. How many votes does this bill need in the House tonight?
Well, the magic number is 218, Gadi. That's what it takes to get it over the threshold. It's only a simple majority in the House. And you're right, there have been quite a few, both Republicans and Democrats, who have voiced their opposition to this bill. But I think there are far more that are actually going to support it. They're not just shouting it from the rooftops. We actually saw a test for this piece of legislation earlier today when they voted on the rule, which is the first procedural step in order to pass a bill on the House floor. That sailed through with relative ease. It did take a combination of Republicans and Democrats to get it there, and that is likely what we're going to see when this vote plays out here in the next half hour or so. You see the House Speaker right now speaking on the House floor in support of the bill. Listen, we knew from the beginning of these negotiations that the ultimate byproduct was going to be something that conservative Republicans hated and progressive Democrats hated. That's what happens when you have a divided government. You have to find some sort of a compromise in order to get the legislation over the finish line. And that's what we're seeing play out in real time here tonight on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, bipartisan support and also bipartisan opposition, right? So starting with the Democrats, what are they voting no to here?
Well, the big thing that progressive Democrats in particular are unhappy with are the cuts that this makes to the budget process. I mean, they were really upset with the premise that there would be any sort of negotiation over the debt ceiling. They believe that the debt ceiling is something that is the responsibility of the federal government to raise, that they always pay its obligations, and there's never any question around that. So there are work requirements that were put in on food stamp programs like SNAP benefits, things along those lines. They're upset that the cuts are only to non-discretionary programs, meaning the Pentagon budget was not touched at all. In fact, the Pentagon budget was the only part of this process that was actually increased. So they don't believe that you should be negotiating over the debt ceiling and using social programs as a way to get you to that point where you can come to some sort of compromise. So that's what the progressive Democrats don't like about it. Again, not enough of them to buck the president, who was the one that negotiated this deal, but they wanted to get on the record with their disapproval of parts of this package.
And Ryan, how about hardline Republicans?
So for hardline Republicans, they just feel it doesn't cut enough, almost the exact opposite of what the progressive Democrats wanted. They wanted, deep cuts to a number of social programs, and they also wanted to fundamentally change the budget process. They wanted to put caps that went much deeper than the caps that were originally, that were ultimately agreed to. They also wanted to go back to spending levels much further back on the calendar, perhaps as far back as 2022 as well. So there were a lot of concessions made on both sides. No one got everything they wanted, and that's generally what you find when you have a bipartisan piece of legislation.
Ryan Nobles watching it all for us tonight. Ryan, thanks so much. So let's now talk about one group that could see some of the first impacts of how this vote goes down, and that is seniors. If Congress doesn't raise the debt ceiling and the country defaults for the first time in history, there are some very real consequences for those getting federal benefits. Take a look at this. Social Security. More than 67 million Americans get monthly benefits, and those checks make up about a third of income for the elderly.
I'm living at a level that I'd be out on the street and I really need my medical, not cutting medical, because I have only 25% lung capacity.
And NBC correspondent Gadi is in Fort Lauderdale, Florida, talking to those who are very worried tonight about their financial futures.
Gadi, as Congress works to approve this new deal to raise the debt ceiling, the senior citizen community, the retired community of Americans, has been paying close attention to the deal because of what this would mean for them. Now, according to the Social Security Administration, 9 out of 10 Americans 65 or older receive Social Security benefits. So if the government were to run out of money, they don't raise the debt limit in time, then that means that the Social Security could delay some of those payments that go out to retired Americans. It could also affect veterans. It could affect Medicaid and Medicare. This is why members of that community have been paying close attention to the deal that's being made, to the cuts that have been discussed, and whether or not Congress is going to be able to approve this in time. Some more numbers that are very interesting with the Social Security Administration. More than 48 million Americans that are retired receive money. These are individuals, many of them who get a large part of their income from those checks that could be delayed if the government were to run out of money. We've been talking to senior citizens, retired Americans, who said they were worried, and this is what they had to say.
Well, it depends on how long it goes. I just won't have any money coming in. I won't have an income anymore. So, I mean, I have a little bit of retirement from something else, but not very much. That's the biggest part of it.
So it always feels like with some of these negotiations that, in my perspective, the poor often are the easiest ones to target, you know, because I think they have less voice and less power to sort of stand up for themselves.
And according to the Social Security Administration, among the elderly in America, 37% of men and 40% of women get 50% or more of their income from Social Security. So you can imagine what it would mean for them to not get the check that they usually use to pay their rent, to pay for food, and essentially live their day to day. This is why this community has been so worried. And as we had these conversations, Gadi, with members of the retired community, it was very interesting to hear how well they understood the deals that are being made in Washington. They understand that the IRS could be taking a cut under the current deal. They understand that the COVID relief money is being pulled back by the government. They understand what's being done because they have been paying close attention to how this may affect, of course, Social Security. And the message from the senior citizens that we spoke to here is that Congress needs to act, because whatever happens with the deal that's being made will have a direct effect the very next day on all of the Americans that depend on that money that comes in from Social Security. Gadi.
NBC's Gadi, thanks. And again, we are watching what's happening on the House floor right now, waiting for that vote to start, and we're going to bring you it live when it happens, so stay tuned. Meanwhile, 5 people are still missing after part of a historic apartment building collapsed in Davenport, Iowa, and 2 people could still be trapped inside. Now, the rest of the building could come tumbling down at any moment, which would normally mean a controlled demolition, but not with the possibility of people still inside. And joining us now from Davenport is NBC's Shaq Brewster. Shaq, what's the latest there?
Hi there, Gadi. Well, I'll tell you, throughout the day, we did see a lot of activity here at the building site. We saw everyone, top officials from the fire chief to the structural engineer going in and out. We saw several men in hard hats going through with vehicles. There's been a drone throughout much of the day that was hovering around the vehicle. We know that a drone has been part of the search and rescue process and also the process of what to do about this building. Aside from that, we have not gotten any update from the city in terms of specifics as to the current status of their investigation, the current status of their search for the 2 people who they say are still trapped by that rubble. What we did learn today, however, is that yesterday morning, the city filed a complaint against the owner of this property. That complaint, and I think we have a graphic showing a little bit of it, but that complaint in the city essentially saying that on or about May 28th, 2023, the defendant failed to maintain his building in a safe, sanitary, and structurally sound condition. The complaint goes on to say that every owner is responsible for maintaining that condition for their property. But the big thing here, Gadi, is that the maximum penalty that the city is seeking for this, the owner will have to appear in court in June. The maximum penalty will be just under $400. So there's still much more investigation to go. The city saying that they're putting together a state team of investigators to look as to the latest and the cause of this partial collapse, Gadi.
And Shaq, I can't imagine what people just living around that building must think right now with seeing that partial collapse and knowing that it is structurally unsound. What are the chances of the rest of the building collapsing on its own?
If you listen to officials, what we've heard from them all along since the partial collapse occurred is that this building is structurally unsound. They're actually saying it's the debris pile, the pile of debris that's holding this building up. So that's why there's that urgency to take this building down. I should also note we did get a comment from the owner of the building. He sends his thoughts and prayers to the tenants and families involved.
NBC's Shaq Brewster, thanks so much. And a lot of people in Columbia, South Carolina are outraged after a 14-year-old was shot in the back and killed late Sunday. Now, police say the teen, Cyrus Carmack Belton, was wrongfully accused of shoplifting by a convenience store owner and his son. And after an argument in the store, they started to chase him. That's when Cyrus apparently fell down, got back up, and was then shot by the store owner, 58-year-old Rick Chow. And he was arrested the next day. Now, Rick Chow claims that Cyrus pointed a gun at him and his son, but police say while the 14-year-old did have a gun, there is no evidence that he pointed it at them. And they also say that there is absolutely no evidence Cyrus stole anything and the shooting was senseless.
Regardless, even if he had shoplifted 4 bottles of water, which is what he initially took out of the cooler and then he put them back, even if he'd done that, that's not something you shoot anybody over, much less a 14-year-old.
NBC's Sam Brock joins us now. Sam, what else do we know about the store owner here?
Yeah, so certainly it's shocking to think, Gadi, that over 4 bottles of water, a 14-year-old teenager could lose his life. Now, police have said that Chow snapped, that he thought that this boy was responsible for theft, when in fact that didn't seem to be the case based on video surveillance. But in terms of what we've just learned today, the Richland County Sheriff's Department released a statement talking about hundreds, not even specifying how many, hundreds of calls specifically to this Express Mart in Columbia over the last 5 years. And I'm going to read you the exact language on this. They say, over the past 5 years, the Richland County Sheriff's Department has received these calls for service at the Express Mart located, and then the address. These calls range from assaults, larceny, shoplifting, motor vehicle theft, vandalism, robbery, and burglary. So you're talking about a massive span of potentially criminal activity there. And they went out to actually talk about a couple of the incidents, Gadi. One of them involved Chow confronting a woman who he said stole some beer and peanuts, followed her to the parking lot. She gets into a car, and he takes out a Glock 45 and ultimately shoots at the car 6 times. No one was injured, but it does tell you a lot about the history and his behavior at this store. And then one other important note here, as far as the background of those he was shooting at, because there was a second incident as well, it was redacted in the police incident reports, so we don't know the racial background of those he was shooting.
And Sam, police are saying that this is not racially motivated, but there are a lot of people in the community saying otherwise, right?
There's no question that the sheriff in this case has said he doesn't see why race would factor in, but the sheriff, of course, is white. Chow is Asian, and the victim in this case was African-American. We've heard from everyone ranging from the coroner to the state representative who actually received a photo of the 14-year-old victim, apparently has a relationship with their family, and he said, it could be my son. In terms of just looking at the photo, he said, he literally, Cyrus, looks like his own son, and I'm going to read you a part of what he said, quote, what happened to him wasn't an accident. It's something that the black community has experienced for generations, being racially profiled, then shot down in the street like a dog. And clearly, extremely strong word choice, but there is no tolerance for this kind of behavior anymore. That's the message he wanted to send in 2023.
And what's the situation at the grocery store? We were just showing some video, and it looks like there's a lot of graffiti, a lot of vandalism there. What's been going on since this happened?
There is. Gadi, what's interesting about this is the chronology. So within a day, Sunday night is when this shooting took place. Prosecutors here filed murder charges against Chow. And it was after the filing of those charges that you see beer cans everywhere, windows smashed, shelves torn apart, as the community expressed its outrage. And there were calls for them to please be peaceful and to not create any more criminal liability on top of what this family is already going through. But it is definitely an example of the frustration, the pain, and the anguish of those living in Columbia, South Carolina.
A case we'll be following closely. Sam Brock, thanks so much.
Thanks, Gadi.
And Stick with us this hour. We are watching the House floor for that debt ceiling vote very closely. We're going to bring you it live when it happens. And then UFOs, also known as unidentified flying objects or unidentified aerial phenomenon or unidentified anomalous phenomenon, whatever they are, NASA is now taking a closer look, and we'll tell you why, so stay tuned. Hey there, welcome back. And here's some of the other headlines we're watching tonight. It is official. Former Vice President Mike Pence is running for president. Now he's expected to kick off his presidential campaign next Wednesday in Des Moines, Iowa. And Pence is not the only one jumping into the race. Two sources confirmed to NBC News that former New Jersey Governor Chris Christie is planning to announce his bid for the White House next Tuesday in New Hampshire. Now this will be his second run for the GOP presidential nomination. And where will the next U.S. Space Command headquarters be? The Trump administration had previously announced it would be in Huntsville, Alabama, but the Biden administration is now eyeing Colorado because of Alabama's anti-abortion laws. Now, bipartisan members of Congress from Alabama are threatening to block funding for those Colorado facilities. And that 70s show actor Danny Masterson has been found guilty of 2 counts of rape in a Los Angeles retrial. He was charged with raping 3 women more than 2 decades ago, and he faces up to 30 years behind bars. And according to the Defense Department, a Chinese fighter jet flew directly in front of the nose of a U.S. reconnaissance plane over the South China Sea on Saturday. And the Pentagon called the maneuver unnecessarily aggressive and says it follows a recent trend of dangerous behavior by Chinese military aircraft. And Alec Murdaugh is back in court today. The former attorney who is currently serving a life sentence in prison for murdering his wife and youngest son now faces a bunch of new federal charges for allegedly ripping off a number of his friends, clients, and family over 15 years, leaving him with millions. In court, Murdaugh pled not guilty to over 20 charges, but his lawyers say maybe that plea could change. NBC News legal analyst Danny Savalos joins us now. Danny, over 20 new federal charges. Can you walk us through this latest indictment?
We're looking at money laundering, bank fraud, wire fraud, really nothing to do with the murders that Murdaugh was convicted of. Instead, these are federal cases. These are federal charges, mostly financial charges, and a lot of them Murdaugh arguably admitted to in his criminal case, in his state court case, in which he was convicted. He took a gamble, he took the stand, and essentially had a strategy of saying, I committed financial crimes, but I'm not a murderer. The jury in the state court case didn't believe him, and that, of course, now leaves him essentially admitting on the stand under oath in a transcript that the federal government can now use against him freely in this case.
And so that's a lot of what we saw in court now playing out going forward, right?
Exactly right. So when Murdaugh took the stand, he essentially admitted to things like stealing from his clients and, from committing all kinds of economic crimes. And, I know from defending money laundering cases and bank fraud and wire fraud cases that really virtually any time you play around with your bank accounts, the federal government can arguably charge you with some form of money laundering, bank fraud, and wire fraud, or any of these crimes. You notice he's also charged with conspiracy. The federal government has already gotten to his co-conspirators. So, I mean, look, the federal government wins 90% of its cases. 90% of them, over 90% are guilty pleas. Those that go to trial, over 90% are guilty verdicts. So those are just the numbers off the bat. This is a case where the defendant has already admitted to a lot of this conduct, so it's an even easier case.
And I know we were talking about millions here. What are the chances of getting some of that money back?
Virtually none. I mean, that's a question that comes up all the time. What are the odds for restitution? And of course, there are civil cases pending, contemplated. I mean, the reality is, folks like Murdaugh, at least according to what he himself admitted to in his testimony, people who have drug and alcohol problems and essentially allegedly steal from clients in order to either support their habit or simply because they can't handle the money, there's no money left in all likelihood. It's hard to get water from a stone.
Danny Savalos, thanks so much. And today, some folks over at NASA, the people you'd hope would be the first to make contact with life from another planet, had a pretty fascinating day. That's where we heard from a NASA panel that is investigating UAPs, which stands for Unidentified Anomalous Phenomenon, a.k.a. UFOs. And here's why that's progress. First, NASA's not the military, or they're not some top secret black program. They are more civilian, right? A lot more open about everything, and they put science first. And today they teamed up with the guy heading up the Pentagon's look into UAPs to give an update on whatever it is flying around in the sky that we can't seem to explain.
Whether that's maneuvering against the wind at Mach 2 with no apparent propulsion, or it's going into the water, which it should reflect a certain amount of light. If it doesn't reflect that amount of light, something weird.
So how many weird things are we looking at? Well, the panel says there are now over 800 plus reported cases, but less than 5% are, quote, possibly anomalous. That's like 50-ish. But still, even if one upends our understanding of physics, it could be the greatest discovery of our time. Now, these UAPs are being studied by a group of 16 people. They are academics, former astronauts, scientists, and what we heard from them over and over and over again is we just don't have the right data to know exactly what we're looking at.
The current existing data and eyewitness reports alone are insufficient to provide conclusive evidence about the nature and origin of every UAP event.
The data needed to explain these anomalous sightings often do not exist.
The existing data available from eyewitness reports are often muddled and cannot provide conclusive evidence that supports UAP recognition and analysis.
We need better data.
And joining us now is astrophysicist Adam Frank. Adam, welcome. Let's get straight to the interesting stuff here. First, you tell me what stood out to you from the panel today, and then I'll tell you what stood out to me.
Okay. So the most important thing I heard today was what I expected to hear, which is that in order to do science with these things, we've got to get our own data. We can't rely on, personal experiences or instruments that we had no idea where they came from or what status they were in. And so the idea here is if you want to do science and if you want to conclude anything, you are going to have to kind of start from scratch, build your own instruments, and begin kind of selectively and rationally planning a search strategy to determine what, if anything, these things are.
Scientific method. Okay, so here's what caught my ear. The mention, and albeit a very brief mention, of metallic orbs. And Dr. Kirkpatrick saying that they're seeing these metallic orbs all over the world, making very interesting apparent maneuvers. Now, we've seen some of the videos start to surface of what look like small metallic orbs flying around in war zones. But Frank, given the nature of where they are and how they're being detected, do you think that NASA's going to be able to solve some of these cases?
Well, with something like this, when I looked at those videos, it's like, look, if you really want to do an analysis, you first of all have to know about the camera, you have to know about the software that was in the camera, then you have to literally break it down frame by frame, look to see if there's any indication of a wind change, if it was a balloon, because I can't tell you how many times these things turned out to be balloons, right? So, the idea that, oh my God, it was moving in a way that we didn't understand, could just be a wind change, essentially. And so the thing about science is it's very, very boring, and it needs to be boring in order to get the right answer. So we're not even at the beginning of the stage of where we really can we need like what we would call a uniform data set. We need to build our own instruments, start watching the skies, and then we'll be in a position to begin to say whether or not there's anything actually unusual here and whether there's anything that even goes beyond human physics. So that's I was happy to see what the panel is doing because these are really respected scientists, and I know some of them. I've worked with some of them, and they're going to start us off on the right road rather than the usual kind of conspiracy hat thing that goes on with a lot of UFOs.
And now, one example of a UAP that was described by that panel today was a video recorded by the U.S. Navy back in 2015. It appeared to show an object moving against the current of the ocean, but then listen to the scientific explanation for it.
And in this case, this object moved about 390 meters in 22 seconds, and that corresponds to a velocity of just 40 miles per hour. It's not our task to conjecture what this object is, but it's an example that illustrates the type of data needed to determine critical parameters that will help us identify such objects going forward.
Now, that is a very well-known video now, and hearing that explanation, what did you take from that?
Yeah, I'm not surprised. 40 kilometers an hour. What was it? 40 miles an hour. I mean, whoa, that's not exactly some kind of crazy alien, right? So it just, once you do the analysis of that object, of the camera, and understand how the camera's moving back against the background, and you do a little geometry, you find out like, oh, this looked crazy, and now it's really not that crazy. And that's what we've got to do. We've got to be able to have enough good data to sort the wheat from the chaff.
Sorting the wheat from the chaff. So step one, being able to talk about this without being made fun of. Step two, getting good data. And step three, maybe we'll have an answer?
We'll have some kind of answer. I think that's how science works. And so we're taking the first baby steps now, I think, to really addressing this problem.
Adam Frank, thanks so much.
My pleasure.
And stick with us because we are keeping a close eye on the House vote on the debt ceiling. It is starting any minute now. But first, we want to show you this. Body cam footage from a Georgia sheriff's deputy. They were in the middle of investigating a car crash when all of a sudden another car crashes feet away. That looked like something out of Grand Theft Auto. Watch. A car pedaled to the metal, drove up to the back of that tow truck, pulled over at the crash site. That car flew off the ramp, flipped in the air. The driver survived, but was taken to the hospital with serious injuries. We'll be right back. And welcome back. Let's get you caught up in 30 seconds. This search continues for 5 people missing after a building collapse in Davenport, Iowa. Officials think 2 of the people could still be trapped inside that rubble. And actor Danny Masterson was found guilty of rape at his retrial. The star of that 70s show was convicted of 2 counts of rape by a Los Angeles jury. And any minute now, we are expecting the House to get a vote underway on the debt ceiling deal. We are keeping an eye on that, and that's where we are picking things up right now over at Capitol Hill. We've got lawmakers trickling in. They are ready to cast their votes. We're going to dip in as soon as that voting actually begins. But let's quickly check back in with NBC's Capitol Hill correspondent Ryan Nobles. Ryan, what's the mood like there? What are you hearing from lawmakers?
This is going about the way we expected it to, Gadi. They're giving everybody who has an opinion about this bill the opportunity to voice that opinion on the House floor, and that can be for or against it. That's what this debate section of the process will be before the vote actually takes place. Once they actually commence the vote, once they suspend the debate and begin the voting process, they've set aside 15 minutes. It could take longer than that. The Speaker has the ability to keep the floor open for as long as he chooses, but I do expect that it'll go pretty quickly. The decisions have already been made, the deals have already been hatched, and we should see this bill passed here in the not-too-distant future.
Pretty quickly, as in 20 minutes, an hour, 2 hours? What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it really depends on when the actual voting begins. I think there's a real possibility that they have it done by 9 o'clock tonight. The worst thing you can do is ever predict how long something's going to take in Congress, because they always have the control of the gavel, of which I do not have. So, the general rule of thumb with Congress is always take the over. Republicans have kind of bucked that trend a little bit since they took over in January. But yeah, I mean, I do think that, we're probably looking at this coming to an end sometime in the next half hour, 45 minutes.
The sign of a true veteran there. And Ryan, while we wait, let's talk about the Senate vote a little bit. What can we expect to see there?
Yeah, because that's really the next battleground, Gadi. The big difference between the House and the Senate is that we're just dealing with a simple majority here tonight. Once the bill gets over to the Senate, it's going to require 60 votes. And there's also the matter of the timeline of things. The Senate has a very rigorous process in order for a bill to be introduced and then eventually put on the floor. And any one senator can hold that process up. And if a senator chose to do so, that could essentially push the vote past the June 5th deadline on Monday. Now, they are working out a way to satisfy the concerns of some of the senators who have said that they want to hold the process up. What it will likely mean is that there'll be a round of amendment votes on the floor. Amendment votes that I should add will require 60 votes in order to pass. All of them will likely fail. If even one of them passes, that changes the legislation. It will have to come back to the House side, and they'll vote on it again, and it will be a guarantee that will crash through that June 5th deadline. So they're going to do everything they can to prevent that, but they are going to allow those amendment votes to try and satisfy the time requirement here. I know that's a lot of kind of in the weeds, but it's important because, you know, June 5th is the deadline, and if the legislation isn't passed by then, there is the real risk of default by the American government.
In the weeds, but extremely important if we go a day, 2 days, a week past the deadline. Ryan, thanks so much. And of course, we're going to be checking back with you in just a little bit. And today is World No Tobacco Day, which is every public health expert's yearly reminder to quit. And there is some good news. Smoking rates in America are dropping to an all-time low, but it isn't the same story for people vaping. That number is going up, especially with kids. Here's NBC health and medical reporter Erica Edwards.
American ashtrays emptier than ever. Recent data from the CDC showing adults who smoked dropped to 11% in 2022, down from 12.5% in 2020, and way down from the more than 40% of Americans who smoked in the 1960s. But now a new danger facing the American public, vaping.
I feel like a lot better now that I'm not vaping, like noticeably better, like my kind of day-to-day life. Like I used to have like phlegm in my throat and constantly getting sick.
Cade Beauparlant vaped for the first time on a sleepover with his friends in the 8th grade.
I mean, when it first came out, everyone was saying it was like a healthy alternative to smoking, which I didn't smoke cigarettes ever, but I don't know, I guess I kind of interpreted it wrong and saw it as like not really being damaging.
But just a few years into vaping, he was diagnosed with a minor lung disease, putting his hockey school career in danger.
When I got the lung disease, it was very noticeable, like being on the ice and getting off and constantly like gasping for breath.
Cade managed to quit vaping, but recent CDC data shows e-cigarette use rose to nearly 6% of Americans in 2022, and more than 2.5 million middle and high schoolers reported e-cigarette use. And all that vaping is having serious consequences.
We're seeing new and emerging evidence that there can be kind of longer-term lung damage. The other health problem that we're seeing are damages to their brain, or at least their memory and cognition. The other third area that we're exploring under evidence is just the effect on what I'll call mood disorders. We know that also our young adults and teens are suffering from an incredible amount of anxiety and depression, and that teens who use e-cigarettes or vaping are more likely to have these symptoms be more dramatic.
The medical community urging parents not to turn a blind eye to vaping.
Nicotine, which is that kind of active substance in tobacco, is just as addictive as heroin and cocaine. That's sobering information for a lot of people, including parents, who might dismiss their child's use or their young adult's use as being better than traditional cigarettes.
Erica Edwards, NBC News.
And next week marks the 79th anniversary of D-Day, when the Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy, France, despite Nazi Germany. And most of World War II veterans have passed on by now. But at 102 years old, Ohio's Richard Stewart is not only with us, he's got some pretty big travel plans coming up, too. Danielle Dinnack, with our affiliate in Cincinnati, has that story.
Longtime Lincoln Heights resident Richard Stewart is one of the oldest and also one of the few African-American veterans making the trip back to the beaches of Normandy for the 79th anniversary of the invasion. Stewart calls the trip a long time coming. Inside the Lincoln Heights Memorial Day ceremony, one man brings the entire room to its feet.
I'm so thankful that the Lord took me over and brought me back, all in one piece and one mind.
He served in World War II and was stationed in Europe on D-Day. Because of segregation at the time, African-American soldiers weren't allowed to fight alongside white soldiers. His unit called to Normandy after the invasion to string communication wires throughout the war-torn area.
Take care of me and bring me back safe and sound. And that's what happened. Still happening.
79 years later, he's returning to those fateful beaches in France.
Did you ever think you'd go back?
No, I didn't think I would go back.
His son Samuel, also a veteran, is making the trip too. overwhelmed with pride to see his dad honored the way he always deserved.
Attention! If it wasn't for family and friends, I wouldn't be able to do it. But I think the most honor for me is the fact that he is 102 and he's lived a great life.
On this Memorial Day, we gather here today to pay respects.
Stewart has no plans of slowing down. He has a self-declared mission for his trip to France.
For him to be blessed enough to go back to the battleground where he served. And maybe I'll be able to document a little bit of that on my phone. And I'm proud of that.
Wow. And House members are still debating the debt ceiling bill on the floor, and then they're going to vote. We are keeping a close eye on all of it. Plus, we've got a real-life scandal at a British morning show, and talk about a daytime drama. This one has sex, lies, and betrayal, so probably want to hear this. Stay tuned. Hey, welcome back. And our check of headlines around the world tonight starts in Italy, where 4 people were killed in this really mysterious boating incident. Today, the Israeli Prime Minister's office confirmed the death of a retired agent of Israel's National Intelligence Agency. Now, this comes after Italy confirmed 2 of its Secret Service agents were also among the dead. 19 people in all were on board that boat when it was hit by a storm on a lake on Sunday, sinking it. And tennis star Novak Djokovic is making headlines, but not for his play at the French Open. Instead, it is this moment of Djokovic writing on a camera lens in Serbian, quote, "Kosovo is the heart of Serbia," that has a lot of people talking. And today, France's sports minister said the message was not appropriate and warned him not to do it again. And a priceless piece of Italian art stolen by the Nazis has been returned home to Poland. Officials say the painting, called Madonna with Child, was sent back at no cost after it was discovered in Japan. The painting was listed as one of the Nazis' 500 most valuable pieces stolen during World War II. More than 66,000 pieces were stolen and are still missing. And the U.S. Department of Defense announced it is sending more weapons and more equipment to Ukraine today. It is the 39th time the DoD has offered equipment to Ukraine since 2021. Included in the package are a pair of air defense systems as well as missiles. And now to an NBC News exclusive. NBC's chief foreign correspondent Richard Engel got unheard of access inside an African country that is now dominated by Russian mercenaries. And those same mercenaries are considered some of the most ruthless fighters in the war in Ukraine, and they are using their riches from the Central African Republic to fuel their fighting there.
It is not just about Russian mercenaries funding the war in Ukraine. It's about Russian mercenaries funding themselves. We talk a lot about Russian mercenaries these days from the Wagner Group, and they are leading some of the fighting in Ukraine. But that is not where they make their money. They do that in Africa, especially in the Central African Republic, where they are exploiting the mineral wealth of some of the world's poorest people.
The Central African Republic is a failed state, torn apart by civil war. In the capital, Bangui, I saw children starving to death at the only pediatric hospital.
What's it like for you, as the director here, to see all these cases?
It upsets me, she says. Mothers don't have money to buy food, and the children fall into this state. They are young victims of Africa's resource curse. Desperately poor people living on land with vast untapped wealth. Here, it's gold and diamonds, but they're not lifting people out of poverty. Much of the riches are now flowing to Russian mercenaries from the Wagner Group. Russia's private army, known for its brutality in Ukraine. Wagner is led by Yevgeny Prigozhin, President Putin's former caterer turned commander. In Ukraine, Wagner fights for the Kremlin. It makes its money here. According to 2 Western diplomats, Wagner extracts $500 million a year from this country in gold, rare timber, and blood diamonds. This woman, who asked us to conceal her identity for her protection, lived near the village of Indasima, where her husband was a gold miner. She told me how Russian mercenaries drove the villagers away.
They were beating people, whipping people, and chasing them away.
When her husband and 7 others refused to leave, they were executed.
What do you think the Russians wanted? Gold? You think it's as simple as that?
Yes, they came for our wealth and for our gold. Today, my children don't have a father. They don't have anything at all.
Working with the research group The Century, NBC News reviewed more than a dozen allegations of Wagner violence, including at Indasima. This was Indasima in 2019, before the Russian takeover. An image taken this month shows the mine has expanded dramatically, now capable of generating untraceable profits. Wagner was invited into the Central African Republic by the government to help crush a rebellion. The government quickly became dependent on Russian support. Wagner even provides the personal security for the president.
Mr. President, it's a real pleasure. Richard Engel, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
What do you say about reports that allege that the Russian forces who you brought in to help secure this country have committed abuses?
Listen, we are a responsible government, and there are laws in this country. We have set up a commission of inquiry to see if the facts reported in these reports are true.
The government relies on Wagner to survive. Wagner pays itself in gold. The people are left starving. We reached out to Prigozhin, and he responded with a voice note, calling our questions provocative and saying in part, quote, "You've received enough information. If by asking these questions you intended just to spit at me, then I suggest you come closer. And after that, try to figure out if it's your throat in my hands or someone else's."
Richard Engel, powerful reporting there. Turning now to one of Great Britain's most beloved morning TV hosts who is stepping away from the anchor desk. ITV's Philip Schofield has admitted to having an affair with a younger staffer who was a teen when they met. NBC News foreign correspondent Josh Letterman has more on the scandal rocking the British news.
It's the kind of tea that this British morning show never wanted to spill.
What has happened to this show?
Philip Schofield, longtime host of ITV's This Morning, stepping down after he says he had an affair with a much younger man who worked on the show. Schofield's lawyers telling the newspaper The Standard that they met when the young man was 15, but that the affair started after he turned 18 and joined ITV. In a statement, Schofield, who is 61, apologizing for the affair, which happened while he was married, saying that relationship was unwise but not illegal. It is now over.
Mitch Kessler, my co-host and partner of 15 years, was fired today.
The scandal leading some on social media to draw comparisons to Apple TV's The Morning Show, about a powerful morning TV anchor brought down by allegations of sexual misconduct.
She's throwing me under the bus.
And like the on-screen duo in The Morning Show, this scandal shattering one of the UK's most iconic and recognizable TV couples. Schofield and Holly Willoughby, known as friends on and off the air, hosting the show together for 14 years.
You are on fire today.
Winning over legions of fans with their on-air antics.
What the hell was that?
And reaping the rewards.
Please don't think we ever take this for granted. This means so much to us.
Holly standing by Phil back in 2020 when he announced to the world that he's gay.
I have never been more proud of my friends than I am today.
But after Schofield admitted the affair, Willoughby no longer appearing to stand by him. Instead, taking to Instagram, writing, "When reports of this relationship first surfaced, I asked Phil directly if this was true and was told it was not. It's been very hurtful to now find out that this was a lie." ITV also saying in a statement that they conducted an investigation in 2020, but couldn't substantiate the affair. The network saying both Schofield and the young man denied it at the time. ITV, This Morning, and Holly Willoughby did not respond to our request for comment. Efforts to reach Philip Schofield were unsuccessful. In the wake of his departure, This Morning making a nod to the scandal.
We love making this show for all of you. Yeah, we really do. And that's exactly what we're going to do. Just write that down.
Holly Willoughby has been off air throughout the scandal. Sky News reports that ITV says she's expected to be back on air June 5th, as the show she helped make a breakfast TV institution does its best to move on.
Josh Letterman, thanks so much. And we are still keeping a close eye on what's going on in Washington. The House is going to vote on a debt ceiling bill just moments from now. We're going to bring it to you live. Plus, it's time for the future of everything. AI is starting to be used to prevent wildfires from spreading out of control. We're going to explain how it works coming up next. And tonight, for the future of everything, the AI revolution seems to be targeting wildfires. The Telluride Fire Department in Colorado is testing out new tech that tracks smoke from fires to hopefully pinpoint exactly where they're burning. NBC's Valerie Castro has more on the new program.
In the foothills of Boulder County, Colorado, a new set of eyes is spotting the first signs of a wildfire.
The boxes there, that's kind of the AI making a determination on smoke composition and comparing it with other data.
High-definition cameras are coupled with artificial intelligence, part of a pilot program with California company Pano AI.
Early detection assisted with artificial intelligence into this field is kind of a game changer for me.
Seth McKinney is the fire management officer for the county sheriff's office.
This is really meant to be mobile and, have this technology really literally at your fingertips.
The AI is even learning the environment, fine-tuning the system.
Initially, we kept getting false detections on blowing snow. Well, eventually that camera learned what blowing snow looks like, and we stopped getting those alerts.
Wow. The technology zeroing in on this real fire in December, then alerting the fire department.
It's been pretty accurate. I think the Sanitas fire, the triangulation that we received was within about 50 feet of the point of origin.
I think this is the fire line.
None of that was in place during Colorado's 4 Mile Canyon fire in 2010 that destroyed 169 homes, including Stephen Spencer's.
It was ash. It was completely burnt to the ground.
Spencer and his family rebuilt, but the burn scars are now part of the view.
Knowing that there's new technology that different states are implementing to try and detect these fires sooner, what do you think about that?
I think of that gathering of data and developing a plan or preventing fires, not so much as artificial intelligence as just intelligence.
Scientists from the University of California at San Diego's Y-Fire Lab, a supercomputer center studying wildland fires, say artificial intelligence can be useful not only in detecting fires, but predicting their behavior.
From planning of evacuations to planning of response and decision support, all along the decision-making chain can benefit from responsible use of AI.
Spencer, who now spends his days capturing the beauty of the land that surrounds him on canvas,
it's in the early stages, but it's a map of Colorado,
is well aware that things around him are different.
When the scientists say that the data shows we're having climate change and disruptive weather patterns and things that are endangering our lives, I don't doubt it. And I can see the evidence around me.
But the future looks different too.
We have to do better. We got to find, ways to be better at stopping these fires. And this is part of that.
Valerie Castro, NBC News.
And firefighters from New York and New Hampshire are headed to Canada to help fight a massive wildfire in Nova Scotia. There are 14 fires actually burning right now, and several are out of control. Thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes, and hundreds of buildings have already been destroyed. Smoke from those fires is even reaching cities hundreds of miles away. Just look at the haze hanging over New York City and Boston. Here's NBC News correspondent Ann Thompson with more.
Tonight, parts of Nova Scotia are a hellscape. There are 14 active fires. 3 are out of control. Officials say the situation is unprecedented.
We're in a crisis in the province, and we want and we need, and we will take all the support we can get.
Halifax, its largest city, under siege. At least 16,000 residents evacuated. Among the some 200 buildings destroyed, Lutz and Terry Codwitt's home and daycare business.
And to not to be able to provide for them is sad.
The smoke and haze penetrating the air of major U.S. cities across the Northeast, 900 miles away.
An air quality alert is in effect for all of New Jersey and all of the Pennsylvania suburbs in our regions.
Who is most at risk?
People who already have lung disease or heart disease are more at risk. There's also some evidence that it affects pregnant women and developing fetuses.
Disaster created by below average rainfall, high winds, and today temperatures near 74 degrees, exacerbated by climate change. Experts say the risk to air in U.S. cities remains so long as the fires rage up north. As the summer heats up and conditions dry out, experts warn we could feel more impacts, even hundreds of miles from the fire zone.
And Thompson, thanks so much. And I'm Gadi Schwartz. Still more breaking news to come tonight. The debate on the House floor is coming to a close, and the vote on the debt ceiling bill will begin any moment now. We're going to bring you that breaking news live when it happens, so stay tuned. The news continues right now.
Thanks for watching our YouTube channel. Follow today's top stories and breaking news by downloading the NBC News app.